More builders are moving to Cost Plus than ever before, and many builders who have been doing it for a long time still wonder if they're invoicing correctly. I get questions constantly about Cost Plus invoicing. Should I show markup? Do I include receipts? How about timesheets? All valid questions. But the biggest mistake? When builders try to format their invoices like job costing reports. Line by line, cost code by cost code, trying to give transparency but often losing the client in the process. And if you're using bloated project management software to build those invoices, you're often jumping through more hoops than you should. Here's the good news. You don't need to invoice by cost code. You need to invoice in a way that makes sense to your client, the average homeowner who's not a builder nor an accountant. In this video, I'm going to break down the best way to invoice Cost Plus projects that drives faster approvals, smoother payments, and better trust. By the way, I'm Brian. I'm a licensed carpenter and former large-scale remodeler and custom home builder. I spent years building high-end custom projects using Cost Plus contracts, and now I coach hundreds of builders on how to do the same. So let's start with what a complete Cost Plus invoicing package actually contains, because a lot of builders are missing key pieces. And it's not because they're trying to hide anything, it's because no one's ever shown them what complete actually looks like. Every solid Cost Plus invoicing package contains three things. The first is the invoice. This is the payment request. It should show the total build cost plus your markup, and it needs to be organized clearly. We'll talk about the best structure shortly, but there's one thing that matters above all. The invoice needs to line up with the backup documentation, and if it doesn't, then credibility takes a hit. The second part is the supporting documentation. Think of this as the evidence behind every dollar that you're charging. You're including material receipts and trade invoices. It should be clean, organized, and easy to match to the invoice. When it comes to labor for field teams, I strongly discourage you from including timesheets in these invoicing packages. They often create more doubt than clarity. A client with a Ring camera or other cameras on the property might not see anybody on site and might question your hours. A project manager might be logging time working remotely or from another project, and your client also doesn't see them on site and questions the hours. Instead, I recommend a simple labor table in your invoice just to break down the number of hours times the charge rate for everybody that performed work on the project. This allows your client to understand what they're paying for without getting stuck in unnecessary details. If they ever want to look at the full-time records, we can always make those available for them, but we don't include them as standard in the invoicing package. And the third thing is the client budget summary. This is where a client gets to see exactly where things stand, and this is the job costing piece of it. It compares budget to actuals and should always include the original estimate, change orders, bill to date, and remaining. Here's the key. The budget summary isn't the invoice. It's the context behind the invoice, and it allows your clients to make informed decisions. And this is exactly how you can send invoices without cost coding to make it easier for your clients to understand and speed up approvals. The next piece is markup. How much to charge, where to show it, and how to talk about it without sounding defensive. There are two main ways to structure your fee in a Cost Plus contract. Percentage-based markup applied to all cost of goods, labor, materials, and trades. This is the most common model because it just works. It scales automatically with the size and complexity of the job, and it's easy to explain because it's tied directly to the job costs. As the scope or timeline changes, the fee just adjusts without a separate conversation. The second is fixed fee, and this is where you take a set fee and spread it across the duration of the project. This one sounds simple on paper, but it's super risky. If the project runs long or the scope grows, you often get squeezed. Let's say you start a $1 million job that's planned for 10 months at a 15% markup. That's $150,000 of fee that you're going to earn. Spread across 10 months, that's $15,000 per month. Then the project timeline increases based on delayed drawings and things just taking longer than expected. So now that $150,000 is spread across 12 months, which gives you $12,500 per month. This is problematic because now you're earning less contribution to overhead and net profit on a monthly basis. And while you might have a clause in your contract that allows you to charge more fee based on the project timeline increasing or changes in scope, what I've often found is that builders are a bit shy about going and having that difficult conversation with the client about how their fixed fee now needs to increase. Finger pointing ensues, and now you're donating your time for free. This is why I strongly encourage you never to use this model unless the scope is super tiny and super defined. Then there's the question of how to show your markup. You can apply it at the invoice level, one clean markup at the bottom, or you can apply it on a line level if you're using different rates. But you have to avoid the #1 mistake out there and not call it a project management fee. Because here's the problem. Project management and site supervision are not part of your markup. They are job costs and they need to be line items in your estimates. You pay people to do these, so these are direct job-related costs. So don't roll these up into your markup and call it a PM fee. It's inaccurate and is bound to bring pushback from your clients. Now, aside from that one, there's a second common mistake we see with markup, and that's charging different markups across different cost of goods or different cost codes. Because the problem is, clients will start asking you why one thing's marked up 15% and something else at 30%. Even if you have a reason, which honestly you probably don't, it usually leads to more questions, not fewer. So keep it consistent, it builds trust and keeps the conversation very simple. Here's the core thing to remember. In Cost Plus, transparency is the value proposition. It's what your client is buying. If your markup is confusing, it will create doubt. Because clients don't need to love your fee, they just need to understand it. And the simpler you make it, the easier it is to explain. Try this. For every dollar that I spend on your behalf, I charge you $1.15. This is the exact way I said it to every Cost Plus client I ever worked for. They didn't love it, but they got it. If you've got questions about markup or anything to do with Cost Plus construction, click the link below to start your free trial of BuildWise. When you join BuildWise, you'll get access to a private community of like-minded remodelers and custom home builders across the country and be able to get support and answers to the questions that you have. Just before we review the ideal invoice structure, let's zoom out a moment and talk about how job costing actually works, because this is actually the source of the majority of the pain when it comes to invoicing Cost Plus projects. There are three big problems that cause headaches for builders using Cost Plus. The first is when your invoice is formatted like a job costing report. The second is syncing your project management platform to QuickBooks using hundreds of products and service codes. And the third, reverse workflows, where the invoices land in the accounting inbox instead of originating in the field. So let's break these down. First, why formatting your invoice as a job costing report is a problem. When you build an estimate, you're working in two layers. Cost groups like framing, electrical, and drywall, and cost items nested underneath, like floor framing, interior partitions, and back framing. To map these properly into QuickBooks Online, you're going to need 3 variations of every single cost item to map it properly. That means you'll need back framing labor, back framing material, and back framing trade partners. And you'll need to do this for every single cost item. But once you multiply that across all of your cost items, you end up with 300 to 400 cost codes. Second, the complexity of syncing your project management software with QuickBooks. Trying to keep those 300 to 400 codes synced between two platforms is like trying to keep two massive filing systems in the exact same order constantly. One small mismatch and you've got errors, missing costs, and inaccurate reports. And the third problem is the reversed workflow. Because here's the thing, your workflow should start at the point of purchase. If a team member buys materials, they should code it right there. And if a trade sends an invoice, it should go to the PM, not to your accounting inbox, so that they can code it for the project and the cost code and then route it onto accounting for payment. That's the upstream fix. Job costing should flow from the field to the office and not the other way around. The real solution is accountability. The person responsible for the cost should log the cost. That one change removes the need for constant syncing and back and forth email chains. When job costing flows cleanly from the field, everything you need for invoicing is already in place. But in a lot of project management software setups, that flow is actually broken. So let's look at the workflow that I recommend to keep things simple and clear when invoicing Cost Plus projects. It all starts in BuildWise's web and mobile apps. Your team tracks their daily time using our industry-unique time tracker. They cannot simply enter a start and end time. They are forced to sort their hours into the relevant cost codes. Next, your team uploads material receipts from Home Depot or Lowe's. They take a photo of the receipt, code it by project and cost code, and hit submit. Lastly, trade invoices get emailed and you or your PM will upload them right into BuildWise, making sure to tag the project and cost code. The best part? It all lands in one screen, not different areas of the platform. The expenses table is your hub for all of the costs in your projects, labor, materials, and trades. When it comes time to invoice, simply push each of the material and trade invoices to QuickBooks using our integration, and then open up QBO and build the invoice. We group by labor first, then materials, then trades. I prefer to use the position filter to grab the hours from BuildWise and display it this way on the invoice. Remember to input the charge rate here instead of the pay rate. We list each of the material items or summarize these into one line. If you want to input the summary total, you can grab the total by filtering this on the Expenses tab in BuildWise. Then enter in something like combined material purchases during the billing period. Use a quantity of 1 and input the amount. Then list out each trade invoice under the heading Trade Partners. You'll need to format the invoice by moving things around, and I also like to create headings for these as well. The last step is adding your markup. There are two options for this: add within each section or add it at the bottom on the invoice level. Personally, I keep markup at the invoice level, simple and clean. Before sending, export all receipts and trade invoices from BuildWise as one PDF and attach it to QBO. Mark the items as billed in BuildWise, grab the client summary and attach that too. Now your client sees three things that match perfectly: the invoice, the receipts, and the budget update, all speaking the same language, so approval is quick. But even with this setup, there are a few things that can derail cost plus invoicing. Let's walk through the most common mistakes I see and how to avoid them. The first one is invoicing irregularly. Monthly billing creates cash flow gaps for you, and it leaves your clients without current information. They don't know how much has been spent, what's been billed, and what hasn't, and how much is remaining. This can often create tension, especially if they're trying to make big decisions about adding elements of scope. Weekly or bi-weekly billing solves that problem. It builds rhythm, keeps conversations short, and keeps the invoices smaller, speeding up your approvals. The second is not including proper backup. Cost Plus relies on proof. If you're billing for materials and trades, but you're not including the material receipts and trade invoices, you're asking your client to take your word for it. But even if the numbers are right, they're going to doubt it. Receipts, trade invoices, and a clear budget update are part of the promise. The third is not showing labor correctly. Lump sum charges or incomplete line items do not build trust. If the invoice just says carpentry for $8,000, that's not going to cut it. Clients want to know who worked, how long they were there, and what the rate was. They're not auditing you, they just want to understand what they're paying for. Number 4 is using markup in a way that erodes trust. We've already covered that when markup isn't consistent, clients notice. If one item is marked up by 15% and another at 30%, it doesn't build trust. And number 5 is assuming that software will fix your broken workflow. Adding tools will not solve your problems with accountability. Clean invoicing starts with clean input. The person who approves the cost logs the cost. That's the only system you should be investing in because seriously, it's a behavior problem, not a tech one. The last part is to discuss how you communicate your invoices with your clients. Remember, you need to send your invoices on a consistent schedule. Weekly is preferred, but bi-weekly is also acceptable. Monthly is just too long. It creates predictability and it matches the promise that you made in your pre-construction process. Include a short summary in your email when you send the invoice. One paragraph is all it takes. Walkout completed, what's getting billed, and where the budget stands. Then back it up with what matters most: the invoice, the supporting documentation, and the client budget update. That's the context your client needs to feel confident and approve the invoice. Finally, stay consistent. Same schedule, same format, same attachments. That rhythm isn't just operational, it's psychological and it builds trust. And trust is what makes Cost Plus work. I used Cost Plus for years without sending any invoice that was built like a job costing report. You don't need bloated software or hundreds of products and service codes connected to QuickBooks. What you need is a simple and straightforward process that builds consistency and clarity. Because in Cost Plus, it's not about what you charge, it's about how you show it, explain it, and back it up. And if you want help dialing in this workflow, then check out BuildWise in the link in the description. It's the only purpose-built software program for Cost Plus builders built by an actual Cost Plus builder. All right, guys, that's it for this video on Cost Plus invoicing and how to build trust with this process. If you found value from this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support this channel, and share with a friend who's also struggling to get Cost Plus invoices out fast. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.